She had 6 months to marry a man she couldn't stand. The boardroom smelled like leather in desperation. Her father sat across the table with his lawyer, and beside them, the contract that would seal everything. 6 months, public engagement, a wedding at the end if the merger went through. All of it with Miles Harding, the man who'd torn apart her proposal at a tech conference 3 years ago in front of 500 people. Nora Bennett had built her career on control. Every decision calculated, every risk measured. But this wasn't a risk. This was a trap dressed in legal terms and her father's tired eyes. Miles would arrive in 20 minutes with his own copy of the contract. They'd sit in the same room and pretend this was reasonable. Pretend 6 months of playing lovers wouldn't destroy them both. Her phone buzzed, a text from Riley. "You don't have to do this." Nora looked at the contract again. Clause 7, cohabitation required. She closed her eyes. 20 minutes. The conference room windows faced south, catching afternoon light that turned the Manhattan skyline into a wall of glass and gold. Nora sat with her spine straight, hands folded on the table in front of her. The contract sat between her and her father like a third person in the conversation. Her fingers traced the edge of the paper. David Bennett cleared his throat. He'd done that twice already in the last 10 minutes. A tell. Her father never showed uncertainty unless the stakes were catastrophic. "The board won't approve the merger without this," he said. His voice carried the weight of 40 years building Bennett Technologies from a garage startup to a Fortune 500 company. Margaret Harding made it clear, her son, "Your partnership. It's the only way she'll sign." Nora looked at him. "You mean marriage?" "I mean strategic alliance." 3 years ago, she'd stood on a stage at the annual Tech Innovation Summit. She'd spent 6 months on a proposal for ethical AI frameworks. Miles Harding had been in the audience, and when the Q&A opened, he'd raised his hand. What followed wasn't a question. It was a systematic dismantling of her research in front of investors, journalists, and every person who'd ever doubted she'd earned her position. She remembered his voice, calm, precise, merciless. Now her father wanted her to marry him. 6 months, David said, reading her silence correctly. "The engagement is public. You attend events. You live together. At the end, if the merger is finalized, you can dissolve it quietly. Cite irreconcilable differences. The press will move on." "And if I say no?" He met her eyes. For a moment, she saw something that looked like regret. Then it was gone, replaced by the expression he wore in every board meeting. "Then we lose the company. 3,000 employees. Your mother's legacy." He paused. "Everything we built." The light through the windows shifted as a cloud passed. The room dimmed, then brightened again. She thought about her mother. Eleanor Bennett had died when Nora was 16. Ovarian cancer. 3 months from diagnosis to funeral. Before she'd gotten sick, she used to say, "Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is say yes to the thing that terrifies you." Nora looked down at the contract. Her phone buzzed. A calendar reminder. Miles Harding arrives in 12 minutes. Miles walked into the room like he owned it. That was the first thing Nora noticed. Not his navy suit or the leather portfolio under his arm. Not even the way he nodded to her father with perfect corporate courtesy. It was the certainty in his stride. The assumption that every room he entered would rearrange itself around him. She stood. Reflex. He stopped 3 feet from the table. His eyes met hers, and for a second, neither of them moved. The air between them felt pressurized. "Nora." His voice was exactly as she remembered. Low, controlled. "Miles." David stood, breaking the moment. "Gentlemen, Miss Bennett, shall we?" Miles set his portfolio on the table and extracted his own copy of the contract. He didn't sit. Neither did Nora. They stood on opposite sides of the polished wood surface like opposing counsel. "I assume you've read the terms," Miles said. Every clause. Then you know this is non-negotiable. Nora felt her jaw tighten. Nothing is non-negotiable. The merger is worth $4 billion. My mother won't sign without this. Your father won't sign without the merger. That makes this very negotiable. He flipped to page 3. Clause 7. Cohabitation. The penthouse on Fifth Avenue. Neutral territory. Neither of our companies own it. I'm aware. Clause 12. Public appearances. Minimum 2 per month. Charity galas. Industry events. Anything that puts us in front of media. I can read. Miles looked up. Something flickered in his expression. Annoyance, maybe. Or recognition that she wasn't going to make this easy. Then let's be clear, he said. I don't want this any more than you do. 3 years ago, you presented research that would have cost my company millions in compliance restructuring. I did what I had to do. You humiliated me in front of 500 people. I challenged your methodology. You called it aspirational at best, delusional at worst. Silence dropped between them like a blade. David cleared his throat again. Perhaps we should focus on... No, Nora cut him off, still looking at Miles. If we're doing this, I want to know. Do you regret it? Miles held her gaze. Regret what? Doing my job? Being cruel. For the first time, she saw something shift in his face. Not guilt, but something closer to acknowledgement. I regret the phrasing, he said quietly, then louder, but not the position. Your framework was flawed. Nora felt heat rise in her chest. She wanted to walk out, wanted to tear the contract in half and let the merger collapse. Let her father find another way. Instead, she picked up the pen on the table. 6 months, she said. We sign this, we play the part, we save both companies. She looked at Miles. And when it's over, we never speak again. Miles picked up his own pen. Deal. They signed. Outside the windows, the city stretched endlessly in every direction, indifferent to the contract binding two people who couldn't stand each other. Nora sat alone in her office after the meeting. The city below had started its evening transformation, lights flickering on in buildings, streets filling with traffic, the sky bruising into dusk. She opened the contract on her laptop. Digital copy, backup, evidence. Clause 7. Cohabitation required within 72 hours of signing. 72 hours. 3 days to pack up her life and move into a penthouse with a man who'd once made her want to quit the industry entirely. Her phone rang. Riley. Tell me you didn't, Riley said without preamble. I signed. Nora. It's done. Nora leaned back in her chair. The leather creaked. 6 months, then it's over. 6 months living with Miles Harding. Riley's voice carried the kind of disbelief usually reserved for natural disasters. The man who eviscerated your presentation. The man you once called the human embodiment of corporate sociopathy. I remember. Do you also remember that you cried for 3 hours in my apartment after that conference? Nora closed her eyes. She did remember. She remembered Riley bringing her ice cream and whiskey and letting her rage until her voice gave out. She remembered feeling small, foolish, like every person who'd ever said she only got her position because of her father had been right. This is different, Nora said. How? Because this time, I'm choosing it. Silence on the other end of the line. Then, that's the saddest thing I've ever heard you say. Nora opened her eyes. Through the window, she could see the building where Harding Logistics had their headquarters. 20 blocks south. Close enough to see, too far to matter. Riley, I need you to do something for me. Anything. I need you to remind me every single day that this is fake. That I'm doing this for the company, for the employees, for my mother's legacy. Her voice cracked slightly on the last word. She steadied it. I need you to make sure I don't forget why I'm doing this. You think you might forget? Nora thought about Miles signing the contract. The way his hand moved across the page. Decisive. Final. She thought about the moment their eyes met in the conference room. The way something in her chest had tightened despite everything. I think, she said slowly, that 6 months is a long time to pretend. Through the phone, she heard Riley exhale. Okay, Riley said. I'll remind you. Every day if I have to. Thank you. After they hung up, Nora sat in the darkening office. She didn't turn on the lights. She watched the city glow brighter as night fell, and she wondered if Miles was sitting in his own office, looking at the same skyline, thinking the same thing. Probably not. Men like Miles Harding didn't doubt their decisions. The rooftop bar was called Elevation, which Riley always said was aggressively on the nose for a place that's literally elevated. But the cocktails were good, and at 10 p.m. on a Wednesday, it was quiet enough to hear yourself think. Nora found Riley at their usual table, corner spot with a view of the park. I ordered you the whiskey sour, Riley said as Nora sat down. You look like you need it. I need something stronger than whiskey. They don't serve cyanide here. I checked. Despite everything, Nora smiled. Riley had that effect. 7 years of friendship, and she still knew exactly how to pull Nora back from the edge. The drinks arrived. Nora took a long sip. The whiskey burned in exactly the right way. So, Riley said, 72 hours until you move in with corporate Satan. How are we feeling? We are feeling like this is a nightmare. Noted, Riley leaned forward. But here's the thing I need to say, and you're not going to like it. When have I ever liked the things you need to say? Fair point. Riley paused, choosing her words carefully. You've been pretending your whole life, Nora. Pretending you're not scared. Pretending you don't need anyone. Pretending you're fine with being the only woman in every room who has to work twice as hard for half the recognition. She held up a hand before Nora could interrupt. I'm not saying you're weak. I'm saying you're human. And 6 more months of pretending, it might break something in you that you can't fix. Nora stared at her drink. The ice was melting, diluting the amber liquid. What's the alternative? She asked quietly. Let the company fail? Let 3,000 people lose their jobs because I couldn't handle living with someone I don't like? The alternative is admitting that you're allowed to hate this. You're allowed to be angry. You don't have to be the perfect daughter who sacrifices everything. My mother, your mother, Riley interrupted gently, would want you to be happy, not martyred. The words hit harder than Nora expected. She felt something hot behind her eyes. She blinked it away. A couple at the next table laughed at something on their phone. The sound felt intrusive. I don't know how to be anything else, Nora admitted. Her voice was barely above a whisper. I don't know how to be the person who says no, who walks away. I've spent my entire life proving I deserve to be in rooms that don't want me. And now, she trailed off. And now you're marrying into one of those rooms. Yeah, Riley reached across the table and squeezed Nora's hand. Then let me be the person who reminds you. You're Nora Bennett. You built the AI ethics division from nothing. You increased revenue by 30% in 2 years. You're brilliant, you're terrifying when you want to be, and you've never let anyone, especially not Miles Harding, define you. She squeezed harder. Don't start now. Nora looked at her friend. Riley's eyes were fierce, protective, the kind of loyalty that didn't come with conditions. Thank you, Nora said. That's what best friends are for. That and reminding you to eat when you're stress working. They sat in silence for a moment, watching the city lights blur into constellations. Somewhere below, people were living their normal lives, going home to apartments, ordering takeout, watching TV, not signing contracts to marry their enemies. Nora finished her drink. 72 hours, she said. 72 hours, Riley echoed. The ice in Nora's empty glass caught the light from the bar, fracturing it into colors she couldn't name. The lawyer's office was in Midtown, sterile. all glass and chrome and uncomfortable chairs designed to make you leave as quickly as possible. Nora arrived first. She sat in the waiting area with her tablet, reviewing quarterly projections. Numbers were safe, predictable. They didn't require her to feel anything. Miles walked in at exactly 3 p.m., punctual, of course. He nodded to her. She nodded back. They didn't speak. The lawyer, a man named Gerald Hoffman, who looked like he'd never smiled in his life, led them into a conference room. 2 copies of the contract sat on the table. Final versions, printed on heavy paper that felt expensive. "Before we proceed," Hoffman said, sitting down, "I need to confirm you both understand the terms. This is a legally binding agreement. 6 months from today, you may dissolve the engagement with no financial penalties to either party. However, if either of you breaches the contract prematurely, there are significant consequences outlined in Clause 22. Nora knew Clause 22 by heart. Breach of contract would result in immediate termination of the merger. Both parties liable, both companies damaged. "We understand," Miles said. "Ms. Bennett?" "I understand." Hoffman slid the contracts across the table. "Then we'll proceed with signatures. Miss Bennett, if you'll sign first." Nora picked up the pen. It was heavy, expensive, the kind of pen meant to make you feel the weight of what you were signing. She hesitated, not because she wanted to back out, but because once she signed, there was no theoretical anymore, no hypothetical. It became real, binding. 6 months of her life dictated by clauses and conditions. She thought about her father's face in the boardroom, the exhaustion in his eyes. She thought about her mother. She signed. Miles reached for his own copy. He didn't hesitate. 3 signatures, initials on page 7, page 14, full name on the final page. Done. Efficient. Hoffman collected the contracts. "Congratulations," he said, which felt absurdly inappropriate. "You're officially engaged." Nora looked at Miles. He looked back. Neither of them smiled. They stood simultaneously. "I'll send movers to your apartment tomorrow," Miles said. His tone was businesslike, transactional. "They'll handle everything. You don't need to be there." "I'll be there." "It's not necessary. It's my life. I'll be there." Something flickered in his expression. Irritation, maybe, or respect. Hard to tell. "Fine," he said. "Movers arrive at 9 a.m. Penthouse access codes will be sent to your phone tonight. Parking spaces assigned. Level 3, spot 42. Anything else?" "Yes." He pulled a small box from his jacket pocket. Black velvet. He opened it. Inside was a ring. Not flashy, not ostentatious. A simple platinum band with a single diamond. Elegant, understated. Exactly the kind of ring someone like Nora would choose if this were real. Which meant he'd paid attention. "For appearances," Miles said. He didn't offer it to her. He set the box on the table between them. "You don't have to wear it when we're alone, but in public—" "I understand." She picked up the box. The ring fit perfectly. Of course it did. He'd probably accessed her medical records or bribed a jeweler who'd sized her before. Men like Miles didn't leave details to chance. She slipped it on her left hand. The metal was cool against her skin. "The press conference is Friday," Miles continued. 2 p.m. Our PR teams have coordinated. We'll make a joint statement. Answer 3 questions. No more. "What kind of questions?" "How we met, how long we've been seeing each other, when the wedding is planned." He paused. "We met at a mutual colleague's dinner party 8 months ago. We've been private about the relationship. Wedding is tentatively planned for 6 months from now, pending final merger approval." It was a good story, believable, boring enough to be true. "I'll memorize it," Nora said. Good. They stood in the conference room, not quite looking at each other. The ring on Nora's finger felt heavier than it should. Hoffman cleared his throat. "Is there anything else you need from me?" "No," Miles said. "No," Nora echoed. They walked out of the office together. In the elevator, they stood on opposite sides. Miles checked his phone. Nora watched the numbers descend. 47, 46, 45. At the ground floor, the doors opened. Miles stepped out first. He paused, turned back. "For what it's worth," he said quietly, "I know this isn't what either of us wanted." Nora looked at him. For a moment, she saw something in his face that looked almost like regret. Then he walked away. She stood in the elevator watching him disappear into the lobby crowd. The doors started to close. She stepped out at the last second. Outside, the city was loud with traffic and construction and 1,000 conversations she couldn't hear. She looked down at the ring on her finger. It caught the light from a passing car, flashed once, then settled into ordinary. The press conference was held in the grand ballroom of the Carlisle Hotel. Too many chairs, too many cameras, too many people whose job was to find the cracks in whatever story you were selling. Nora stood backstage with Riley, who was doing final checks on her appearance. Hair, perfect. Makeup, subtle but camera-ready. Dress, navy Armani tailored to precision. "You look terrifying," Riley said, in a good way. "I feel like I'm going to throw up." "That's normal. Just remember, smile when he touches you. Laugh at his jokes even if they're not funny. And for God's sake, don't flinch when he calls you darling." "He's going to call me darling?" "It's in the script." PR thought it sounded authentic. Nora closed her eyes, took a breath, let it out slowly. When she opened them, Miles was standing in the doorway. He wore a charcoal suit, no tie. The top button of his shirt was undone in that deliberately casual way that probably took him 15 minutes to get right. He looked good. She hated that she noticed. "Ready?" he asked. "No, me neither." He offered his hand, "But we're doing it anyway." She took his hand. His grip was warm, steady. She'd expected something clinical, perfunctory. Instead, it felt grounding. They walked onto the stage together. The cameras erupted like flashbulbs in a thunderstorm. Nora kept her smile fixed. Miles guided her to the podium with his hand on the small of her back. A gesture that looked protective, possessive, exactly what the cameras needed. He stepped up to the microphone first. "Thank you all for coming," he said, his voice carried easily across the room. "Nora and I wanted to share some personal news. 8 months ago, we met at a mutual colleague's dinner party. What started as a professional conversation became something neither of us expected." He turned to look at her. "I'm not good at sentiment, but I'm good at recognizing when something matters. And she matters." Nora's heart did something complicated in her chest. She reminded herself this was scripted, rehearsed, fake. She stepped forward to the microphone. "Miles and I have kept our relationship private intentionally, but with the upcoming merger between Bennett Technologies and Harding Logistics, we felt it was important to be transparent." She looked at the reporters, picked one face in the crowd, and focused on it. "We're engaged. The wedding is planned for 6 months from now. And yes, this is connected to the merger, but not in the way you might think." A reporter in the third row raised her hand. "How do you respond to critics who say this engagement is purely strategic?" Miles took the microphone. "Every relationship is strategic to some degree. You choose someone whose values align with yours, whose goals complement your own. Nora and I happen to share professional ambitions. That doesn't make what we have any less real." The lie came out smooth, practiced, believable. Another reporter. "Miss Bennett, 3 years ago, Mr. Harding publicly criticized your work. How did you move past that?" Nora felt Miles tense slightly beside her. She took the microphone. "We're both competitive people," she said carefully. "Disagreement is part of how we push each other to be better. That particular disagreement was professional. This is personal. There's a difference." Miles leaned into the microphone, adding without breaking rhythm. "And for the record, I was wrong about her framework. She's proven that since." Nora looked at him sharply. That wasn't in the script. He met her eyes. Something passed between them that the cameras caught perfectly. Third question, when's the wedding? 6 months, Miles said. He reached for Nora's hand, threaded his fingers through hers, lifted their joined hands to show the ring. We're not in a rush. We want to do it right. The cameras went wild. After exactly 3 questions, Riley stepped forward and thanked everyone for coming. Miles guided Nora off the stage, hands still on her back. They walked through the hallway toward the private exit. The moment they were out of camera range, Miles dropped his hand. That went well, he said. You went off script. I improvised. It needed authenticity. You said you were wrong about my framework. I was. He stopped walking, turned to face her. Your framework wasn't flawed. It was ahead of its time. By the time I realized that, you'd already moved on to something else. He paused. I should have said that 3 years ago. Nora stared at him. This was the closest thing to an apology she'd ever get from Miles Harding. Why now? She asked. Because we're about to spend 6 months lying to everyone else. We might as well be honest with each other. He walked toward the exit. Nora stood in the hallway, watching him go. The ring on her finger felt different now. Heavier, more complicated. Outside, she could hear the reporters still buzzing with questions they hadn't gotten to ask. The sound faded as she walked toward the car waiting at the service entrance. Miles was already inside. He'd loosened his collar, looked tired in a way she hadn't noticed before. She climbed in beside him. The driver pulled into traffic without asking where they were going. Because there was only one place now, the penthouse. Home. Nora watched the press conference video on her laptop in bed that night. Riley had sent her the link with 3 fire emojis and a message. You two are scarily convincing. She clicked play, watched herself walk onto that stage, watched Miles touch her back, watched the moment he said, she matters, and the way her expression shifted, just slightly, before she caught herself. She paused on that frame. Her face looked surprised, vulnerable, like she'd forgotten for a second that this was performance. She played it again, watched Miles say, I was wrong about her framework. That hadn't been in the rehearsal. He'd improvised. But why? She closed the laptop. Her apartment was mostly packed now, boxes stacked against the walls, furniture wrapped in plastic. Tomorrow morning, the movers would take everything to the penthouse. By tomorrow night, she'd be living with Miles. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Gate code 4782. Elevator is keyed to your fingerprint. Bedroom on the left is yours. I'll take the right. Miles. She saved the number under Harding. Another text came through. Security briefing at the building tomorrow at 1 p.m. They'll need your biometrics. Sorry for the inconvenience. She typed back. Fine. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. For what it's worth, the thing I said today, about being wrong, I meant it. Nora stared at the message. She didn't respond. After a minute, she turned off her phone and set it on the nightstand. The room was dark except for the faint glow from the street below. She lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow, this apartment would be empty. By next week, someone else would move in, hang their own art, fill the rooms with their own life. She thought about the penthouse. Neutral territory, Miles had called it, neither of theirs. She wondered what neutral felt like when you were living with someone who'd once made you want to disappear. Through the wall, she heard her neighbor's TV. A laugh track, applause, the ordinary sounds of ordinary lives. She closed her eyes, tried to imagine 6 months from now, tried to picture walking away clean, unaffected. But all she could see was Miles pausing the video on her face, watching the same moment she was watching now, wondering the same thing. The image dissolved into darkness. The penthouse was on the 42nd floor of a building that didn't have a name, just an address. The kind of place where doormen wore tailored suits and knew better than to ask questions. Nora arrived at noon. The movers were already there, hauling boxes into the freight elevator. She followed them up. The elevator opened directly into the penthouse. No hallway, no buffer, just immediate immersion into a space that was clearly designed by someone who understood luxury, but not warmth. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlook Central Park. White walls, gray furniture, abstract art that probably cost more than most people's cars. It looked like a magazine spread. Beautiful, impersonal, empty. Miles was in the kitchen, unpacking coffee supplies. "Left bedroom is yours," he said without looking up. "Bathroom is en suite. I had the movers put your boxes in there." "Thank you." "Office is down the hall if you need workspace. I'm usually there until around 10 p.m., so you'll have privacy." Noted. They were being so carefully polite it felt like walking on glass. Nora walked toward her bedroom. The door was open. Inside, boxes were stacked neatly against one wall. The room itself was twice the size of her old bedroom. King bed, walk-in closet, a window that framed the park like a painting. She set her bag down on the bed and just stood there. This was her life now. She heard footsteps. Miles appeared in the doorway, holding 2 coffee mugs. "Thought you might want caffeine," he said, offering one. "It's black. I don't know how you take it." "Black is fine." He leaned against the doorframe, not quite entering the room, maintaining boundaries even in proximity. "I want to establish ground rules," he said, "if we're going to do this without killing each other." "Agreed. We respect each other's space. No going into each other's rooms without permission. No questions about where we are or who we're with when we're not together. This is a professional arrangement." "Professional," Nora repeated. "We're colleagues sharing space, that's all." She sipped the coffee. It was good, better than it had any right to be. "What about appearances?" she asked. "PR said we need to be seen together. Restaurants, events. We schedule those, treat them like business meetings. Show up, play the part, leave. And here, when it's just us?" Miles was quiet for a moment. "I work late. You probably do too. I imagine we'll barely see each other." It was the right answer, the safe answer. So why did it feel hollow? "Okay," Nora said. "Professional, scheduled appearances, mutual avoidance." "Exactly." He straightened, started to leave, then paused. "Nora," she looked at him. "I know I'm not easy to live with," he said quietly. "I'm told I'm demanding, obsessive, and emotionally unavailable. So if I do something that crosses a line, tell me. I'll fix it." It was the most vulnerable thing she'd heard him say. "Same," she said. I'm not good at letting people in. If I'm cold or distant, it's not personal. Everything with you is personal." She blinked. "What?" "You take everything personally. It's not a criticism, it's observation. You care about your work because you care about proving something. To your father, to the industry, maybe to yourself." He met her eyes. "It's why I respected you even when I disagreed with you." Nora didn't know what to say to that. Miles nodded once, as if the conversation was concluded, and walked away. She stood in her new bedroom with her coffee and her boxes, and the weight of his words. Everything with you is personal. He wasn't wrong. Through the wall, she heard him on a phone call. Something about quarterly projections. His voice was clipped, professional. The version of Miles the world saw. She wondered which version she'd get. The coffee had gone lukewarm. She drank it anyway. That night, Nora couldn't sleep. She'd unpacked 3 boxes, hung some clothes, set up her laptop on the desk by the window, made the space functional, if not comfortable. But sleep wouldn't come. At 2 a.m., she gave up, put on a robe over her tank top and pajama pants, walked quietly down the hall toward the kitchen. The penthouse was dark, except for a line of light under Miles's office door. She paused. He was still working. At 2 in the morning, she should go back to her room. This was their agreement, separate lives, minimal interaction. But something in her chest tightened with a feeling she didn't want to name. Recognition, maybe, of someone who couldn't turn their brain off even when their body begged for rest. She kept walking to the kitchen, made herself tea, chamomile, the kind her mother used to make when Nora was stressed about exams. She sat at the island, cupping the mug in both hands, watching steam curl into the dark. A door opened down the hall. Footsteps. Miles appeared in the kitchen doorway. He'd changed out of his suit into a t-shirt and sweatpants. He looked younger like this, less armored. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "Too much on my mind." "Same." He poured himself water from the fridge, leaned against the counter. They were in the same room at 2 a.m., and somehow it didn't feel like an intrusion. It felt like a truce. "What keeps you up?" Nora asked. Miles considered the question. "The feeling that I'm one decision away from catastrophe, that everything I've built could collapse if I make the wrong move." "That's incredibly specific." "You asked." Nora smiled despite herself. "I get that. The catastrophe thing. It's exhausting, isn't it? Always waiting for the other shoe to drop." "Exhausting doesn't cover it." They fell into silence, not uncomfortable, just present. "Can I ask you something?" Miles said. "Depends on the question. That day at the conference, after I criticized your framework, did you—" He paused, choosing words carefully. "Did you consider leaving the industry?" Nora looked at him. Really looked at him. He seemed genuinely curious, not cruel, not dismissive, just wanting to understand. "Yes," she admitted. "For about 3 hours, I considered it. I went back to my hotel room and cried, and thought about every person who ever told me I didn't belong." She took a sip of tea. "Then I got angry, and I decided to prove you wrong." "Did you?" "The framework is now standard in 12 Fortune 500 companies, so yes, I proved you wrong." Miles nodded slowly. "Good." "Good?" "If you'd quit, the industry would have lost someone important. I would have been responsible for that. So, good that you didn't." It was as close to an apology as she'd probably ever get, closer than she'd expected. "Why did you do it?" she asked. "Really, was it just business?" Miles set down his water glass. "Honestly, I saw your presentation and I knew it would work. I knew it was brilliant. And I knew if it became industry standard, my company would have to restructure everything. Millions of dollars, years of work. So I attacked it before it could take root." He met her eyes. "It was strategic, and it was cowardly." Nora hadn't expected that. The admission, the honesty. "Well," she said softly, "at least you're self-aware. Doesn't make it better. No, but it makes you less of a villain." Something passed between them, not forgiveness, but maybe understanding. Miles straightened. "I should let you sleep. You should sleep too." "I will, eventually." He walked toward his office, then stopped, turned back. "Nora?" "Yeah? For what it's worth, I'm glad it's you. If I have to do this with anyone, I'm glad it's someone who won't let me get away with anything." He disappeared into his office before she could respond. Nora sat alone in the dark kitchen. The tea had gone cold. She didn't drink it. Outside, the city glowed with 1,000 lights. Across the park, she could see other buildings, other windows, other people awake at ungodly hours, perhaps wondering the same things. She looked down the hall at the line of light beneath Miles's door. They were strangers living under one roof, bound by contract, separated by history. But for the first time since signing those papers, she thought maybe, just maybe, 6 months wouldn't destroy her. The light stayed on until dawn. The first week of living together established a rhythm that felt less like cohabitation and more like a carefully choreographed dance of avoidance. Nora woke at 6, ran in the park, returned to find Miles already gone, his coffee mug in the sink, his bedroom door closed. She showered, dressed, went to work, came home at 8 to find evidence of his existence, but never the man himself. A jacket on the chair, papers on the counter, the faint smell of his cologne in the hallway. They were ghosts sharing the same space. On Thursday morning, that changed. Nora walked into the kitchen at 6:30, still in her running clothes, and found Miles at the espresso machine. He wore gray sweatpants and a white t-shirt. His hair was uncombed. He looked almost human. "Morning," he said without turning around. "Morning." The espresso machine hissed and gurgled. The sound was too loud for the early hour. "There's a spare mug in the cabinet if you want coffee," Miles said. "I usually make a smoothie." "I know. I hear the blender every morning." He turned, handed her a small espresso cup. "But you ran 6 miles today. You need the caffeine." Nora took the cup. "How do you know I ran 6 miles?" "You have a specific kind of exhaustion after long runs, different from your regular exhaustion." She didn't know whether to be impressed or disturbed that he'd noticed. The espresso was perfect, strong, not bitter, with a thin layer of crema on top. "Thank you," she said. Miles leaned against the counter, holding his own cup. They stood in the morning quiet, drinking coffee, not quite looking at each other. "We have the Morrison Gala tomorrow night," Miles said. "PR wants us there by 7, red carpet at 7:30. "I know. Riley sent me the schedule." "What are you wearing?" "I haven't decided." "Wear the green dress." Nora looked at him. "What green dress?" "The one you wore to the Tech Innovation Awards 2 years ago. It photographs well." She stared. "You remember what I wore 2 years ago?" Miles's expression didn't change. "I remember details. It's part of my job." He rinsed his cup in the sink and left the kitchen. Nora stood alone, holding her espresso, trying to figure out if that interaction was normal or profoundly strange. She decided on strange, but she wore the green dress anyway. The crisis started with an email at 9:14 a.m. Nora was in a meeting with her AI ethics team when her phone buzzed 3 times in rapid succession. She ignored it. Then it buzzed again. And again. She glanced at the screen. "Miles. Call me. Now." "Miles. Board meeting in 20 minutes. Emergency." "Miles. Someone leaked the Harmon acquisition plans." Nora excused herself from the meeting and called him from the hallway. "How bad?" she asked. "Bad. Marcus Harmon just called my mother. He's threatening to pull out of everything, the acquisition, the logistics partnership, all of it. Says he doesn't do business with companies that can't keep confidential information confidential." "Who leaked it?" "I don't know yet, but it came from our side. CrossCorp doesn't have access to those files." Nora felt her stomach drop. Bennett Technologies had been negotiating the Harmon acquisition for 8 months. It was supposed to be the crown jewel of the merger, proof that the combined company could compete on a global scale. "Where's the board meeting?" she asked. "Your building, conference room A, 15th floor." "I'll be there in 10 minutes. She was there in 7. The conference room was already full. Her father at the head of the table. Margaret Harding on video call from London. 6 board members looking various shades of furious and panicked. Miles stood by the window, arms crossed, jaw tight. Nora took the seat next to him. "Miss Bennett," her father said, "good of you to join us." "What do we know?" Nora asked, skipping pleasantries. A board member, Thomas Chen, VP of Operations, pulled up a document on the screen. "This is the Harmon acquisition strategy. Confidential, eyes-only clearance. It was sent to 3 journalists this morning at 6 a.m. from an internal email address." "Whose address?" "We're still tracing it. IT says it was routed through multiple proxies. Whoever did this knew what they were doing." Margaret Harding's voice came through the speaker. "This is a disaster. Marcus Harmon is already in talks with Vanguard Industries. If we lose this acquisition, we lose credibility. The merger becomes worthless." Miles spoke for the first time. "We don't lose it. We fix it." "How?" Thomas asked. "Harmon won't even take our calls." "Then we go to him. In person." Miles looked at Nora. "He respects directness. If we show up, acknowledge the breach, and present a solution, he might listen." "And if he doesn't?" David asked. Then we're screwed anyway, but at least we tried. Nora felt everyone's eyes on her, waiting for her to support or contradict Miles. She made a decision. Miles is right, she said. We go to Harmon, today. We take full responsibility and show him we're serious about fixing this. David studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Do it. You have until end of business today. The meeting adjourned. Miles and Nora stood in the hallway as people filed past. Do you know where Harmon is? Nora asked. Boston. His office is in Back Bay. I can have a helicopter here in 30 minutes. A helicopter? You have a better idea? She didn't. Let's go, she said. They were in the air by 11 a.m. The helicopter was small, loud, and terrifying. Nora gripped the seat as Manhattan disappeared beneath them, replaced by the gray expanse of Long Island Sound. Miles sat across from her, reviewing documents on his tablet. He looked completely unbothered by the fact that they were suspended in the air by machinery and hope. You're afraid of flying, he observed without looking up. I'm not afraid, I'm cautious. Your knuckles are white. Nora forced herself to relax her grip. How do you know Marcus Harmon will even see us? I don't, but his assistant owes me a favor. What kind of favor? Miles finally looked up. The kind where I don't ask questions, and she gets us through the door. They landed on a private pad outside Boston at 1:15 p.m. A car was waiting. 20 minutes later, they were in the lobby of Harmon Industries. The assistant, a woman in her 50s named Patricia, met them at security. You have 10 minutes, she said. He's between calls. If you're not convincing, you're out. Understood, Miles said. They rode the elevator to the 30th floor in silence. Marcus Harmon was exactly as Nora remembered from their one previous meeting. Late 60s, silver hair, sharp eyes that missed nothing. He stood when they entered, but he didn't shake hands. You have audacity, I'll give you that, Harmon said. Showing up here after someone in your organization tried to sabotage me. That's why we're here, Nora said. To take full responsibility and make it right. Make it right? The damage is done. Those journalists are already writing their stories. Miles stepped forward. The leak came from our side. We acknowledge that. But we think it was deliberate sabotage. Someone who wants the merger to fail. Harmon raised an eyebrow. And you think that makes me feel better? No, but it means we have a common enemy. Miles pulled a folder from his bag. These are the security protocols we're implementing immediately. Full internal audit. External cybersecurity firm. Zero tolerance policy for leaks. If you give us 72 hours, we'll find whoever did this. And in the meantime? In the meantime, Nora said, you have our word that this acquisition matters to us. Not just financially, strategically, personally. We wouldn't be here if we didn't believe that. Harmon looked at her, then at Miles, then back at the folder. Your word, he repeated. That's what you're offering? Yes, Nora said. Harmon was silent for a long moment. Then he sat down. 72 hours, he said. Find me the person who leaked that document and make sure they never work in this industry again. Miles nodded. Done. And one more thing, Harmon pointed at both of them. This engagement of yours, the PR stunt, I don't care if it's real or fake, but if you're going to run a company together, you need to trust each other. I saw the way you walked in here. You're coordinated, but you're not connected. Fix that. They left his office at 2:30. In the elevator, Nora exhaled for what felt like the first time in an hour. We just bought ourselves 3 days, she said. 3 days to find a needle in a haystack. Miles loosened his tie. But it's better than nothing. He said we're not connected. He's not wrong. The elevator opened. They walked toward the car in silence. Inside, with the privacy screen up and the city rolling past outside, Miles turned to her. Thank you, he said, for backing me up in there. You didn't have to. You were right. That's reason enough. Still, it mattered. Nora looked at him. His tie was crooked. His jaw was tight with stress. For the first time since they'd met, he looked like someone who could fail. "We're going to find whoever did this," she said. "I know. And we're going to fix it." Miles met her eyes. Together? Together. It was the first time they'd said that word and meant it. The helicopter ride back felt shorter. The Morrison Gala was black tie, overcrowded, and exactly the kind of event Nora usually hated. But tonight, with Miles beside her and cameras everywhere, she played her part perfectly. They arrived at 7:30, stepped onto the red carpet together, his hand on the small of her back, a gesture they'd practiced without realizing they were practicing it. "Mr. Harding, Miss Bennett, over here!" Flash, flash, flash. "How's wedding planning going? Any updates on the merger? You two look amazing together." Miles leaned in close, his lips near her ear. To anyone watching, it looked intimate, romantic. "Smile," he murmured. "You look like you're at a funeral." "I hate these things." "I know. 30 more seconds." He guided her forward, waving once more for the cameras, then through the doors into the ballroom. Inside was a sea of designer gowns, expensive suits, and people who measured worth in zeros and connections. Nora smoothed her green dress. It did photograph well. Miles had been right about that. "Drink?" Miles asked. "God, yes." He returned with 2 glasses of champagne. They found a corner that offered visibility without immediate engagement, a strategic position Riley had once called the power pocket. "We need to circulate," Miles said. "Be seen, but not too available." Sounds exhausting. Everything about this is exhausting. A woman in red approached, Senator Patricia Owens, someone Nora knew from fundraisers. "Nora! And Miles Harding. I heard the news. Congratulations on the engagement." "Thank you, Senator," Miles said smoothly. "When's the big day?" 6 months, Nora said. "We're still finalizing details." "Well, don't wait too long. Life's too short." Patricia smiled. "And speaking of which, I heard about the Harmon situation. Nasty business." Miles's expression didn't change. "These things happen. We're handling it." "I'm sure you are." Patricia sipped her champagne. "Just remember, people are watching. The merger has implications beyond business. Jobs, communities. If it falls apart, it won't," Nora said firmly. Patricia studied her, then nodded. "Good. I'm counting on that." She drifted away. Miles exhaled slowly. "That was a warning." "I know. If we fail, it's not just us. It's everyone connected to this." Nora took a long drink of champagne. The bubbles burned. The night continued. They danced once, a slow song that required them to stand closer than they'd ever been. Miles's hand on her waist, her hand on his shoulder. Moving in time to music neither of them really heard. "You're good at this," Nora said quietly. "At what?" "Pretending." Miles looked down at her. His eyes were dark in the dim ballroom light. "So are you." "I've had practice." "With who?" "Everyone, my whole life." The song ended. They separated. Applause rippled through the room. An older man approached, someone Miles knew from CrossCorp. They talked business. Nora smiled and nodded and let the conversation wash over her. At 10 p.m., Riley texted, "You two look perfect together. Even I almost believe it." Nora didn't respond. They left at 11. In the car, Miles loosened his tie and closed his eyes. "That was brutal," he said. "Welcome to my life." "Do you do that often? Events like that?" "Twice a month, sometimes more." "No wonder you're exhausted all the time." Nora looked at him. "You think I'm exhausted?" "I know you are. I see the way you look at 3 p.m., like you're running on fumes." "And yet I keep running." "I noticed that too." The car pulled up to their building. They rode the elevator in silence. In the penthouse, Nora kicked off her heels the moment the door closed. Miles shrugged out of his jacket. "Nightcap?" he offered. She should say no, should go to her room, maintain boundaries. Sure, she said. They sat on the balcony with whiskey and the city sprawling beneath them. Harmon was right, Miles said after a while. We're coordinated, but we're not connected. Does that matter? I don't know, maybe. He swirled his whiskey. You backed me up today, in his office. That meant something. You had a good plan. I supported it. It was more than that. Nora looked at him. The balcony light caught his features in sharp relief. The line of his jaw, the shadow under his eyes, the exhaustion he usually hid. You're right, she said quietly. It was more than that. They sat in silence, watching the city lights blur into constellations. By the time Nora went to bed, it was nearly 2 a.m., and for the first time since moving in, she didn't feel like a stranger in this place. The call came at 2:30 in the morning. Nora's phone vibrated on her nightstand. She grabbed it, disoriented. Riley's name on the screen. Riley, what? Turn on the news, Channel 7, now. Nora stumbled to the living room, found the remote. The TV flickered to life. A news anchor sat at a desk, looking serious. Breaking story tonight. Documents allegedly showing fraudulent accounting practices at Bennett Technologies have been leaked to multiple news outlets. The documents, if authentic, suggest systematic misrepresentation of revenue over the past 3 years. Ms. Bennett's office has not yet responded to requests for comment. Nora's blood went cold. A knock on her bedroom door. Miles, in sweatpants and a t-shirt, looking grim. You saw, he said. I'm watching it now. It's bullshit. Those documents are fabricated. How do you know? Because I've seen your company's real financials. These numbers don't match. Another knock, this time on the front door. Miles walked over, checked the peephole, then opened it. Riley burst in, still in her pajamas, hair in a messy bun. Please tell me you have a crisis plan, Riley said. We're working on it, Nora said. Work faster, my phone is exploding. Media wants a statement. Your dad is calling every 5 minutes, and, she paused. The board has called an emergency meeting for 7 a.m. Nora sat down on the couch. Her mind was racing. Someone had leaked confidential Harmon documents. Now someone had fabricated Bennett financials. This wasn't random. This was coordinated. Same person, Miles said, reading her thoughts. Has to be. But who has access to both? Nora looked at Riley. Pull up the list of everyone with eyes-only clearance. Cross-reference with anyone who had access to our financial systems in the last 6 months. Riley was already on her laptop. On it. Miles sat beside Nora, not touching, but close enough that she could feel his presence. We'll figure this out, he said quietly. What if we don't? Then we go down fighting, but we don't go down. The TV continued its loop of accusations and speculation. Nora watched her company's reputation disintegrate in real time. At 3 a.m., Riley looked up from her laptop. I have something, she said. One name appears on both access lists. Junior board member, Thomas Chen. Nora frowned. Thomas has been with the company for 15 years. Why would he? Check his recent financial records, Miles interrupted. If he's being paid by someone to sabotage the merger. Riley typed furiously, then stopped. Oh God, she said. He received a wire transfer 2 weeks ago, $500,000, from a shell company registered in the Cayman Islands. Miles pulled out his phone, started typing. What are you doing? Nora asked. Running that shell company through my security firm. Give me 5 minutes. While they waited, Nora called her father. Told him what they'd found. His silence on the other end was worse than anger. 7 a.m. meeting, he said finally. Be ready to present everything. Miles's phone pinged. Got it, he said. The shell company traces back to Vanguard Industries. Nora's stomach dropped. The company trying to acquire Harmon. Exactly. Thomas has been working for them, sabotaging our merger so Vanguard can swoop in. Riley closed her laptop. We need to call the authorities. This is corporate espionage. Not yet, Miles said. If we go public now, it becomes a media circus. We handle this internally first, then we let law enforcement clean up. Nora looked at the clock. 4 a.m. 3 hours until the board meeting. We need evidence, she said. Hard proof that Thomas leaked the documents. And we need to prove our financials are legitimate. I can get our external auditors on the phone by 6, Miles said, and I can pull server logs showing when Thomas accessed those files, Riley added. Nora felt something shift in her chest. Not quite hope, but close. Then we have a plan, she said. They worked through the night. By 6:30 a.m., they had a presentation ready. Evidence, proof, a clear narrative. At 6:45, Nora stood in front of her bathroom mirror. She looked exhausted, wrecked. She put on makeup, fixed her hair, put on her armor. When she emerged, Miles was in the living room, wearing a fresh suit. He looked at her. Ready? He asked. Ready. They walked into that board meeting together, and they burned Thomas Chen's career to the ground with facts. The aftermath was brutal, but necessary. Thomas Chen was fired immediately. Legal proceedings began. The fabricated documents were publicly debunked by external auditors. Within 48 hours, the media narrative shifted from Bennett Technologies scandal to corporate sabotage uncovered. But the damage was done. 3 major investors pulled out. Stock prices dropped 12%, and Marcus Harmon called to say he was reconsidering the acquisition. Nora sat in her office at 7 p.m., staring at her computer screen, trying to figure out how to fix something that might be unfixable. A knock on her door. Riley poked her head in. You have a visitor. Tell them I'm busy. It's Miles, and he brought food. Nora looked up. Food? Miles walked in carrying 2 paper bags from the Thai place 3 blocks away. He set them on her desk. You haven't eaten today, he said. How do you know? Because I know you. When you're stressed, you forget food exists. He unpacked containers, pad thai, spring rolls, mango sticky rice. I'm not hungry, Nora said. Eat anyway. She picked up a spring roll, took a bite, realized she was starving. They ate in silence for a few minutes. Harmon's going to pull out, Nora said finally. Maybe. There's no maybe. We lost his trust. Miles set down his food. Then we earn it back. How? By doing what we did today, by showing up, by proving we're serious. He met her eyes. We went to Boston and he gave us 72 hours. We delivered in 48. That counts for something. Does it? It has to. Nora felt something crack in her chest. The armor she'd been wearing for weeks, months, years. It fractured just slightly. I'm tired, Miles, she said quietly. I'm so tired of fighting, of proving myself, of pretending I have all the answers when I barely have questions. Miles was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Do you ever feel like you're living someone else's life? Nora looked at him sharply. Those were almost exactly the words she'd wanted to say. Every day, she admitted. Me too. He leaned back in his chair. My mother built an empire. I'm supposed to maintain it, grow it, never question whether it's what I want, just do it. Is it what you want? Miles laughed, but there was no humor in it. I don't know. I've never let myself ask. Nora understood that, the danger of asking. Once you asked, you had to face the answer. What would you do, she asked, if you could do anything? He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, I have a project, something I've been working on for 2 years, a nonprofit tech initiative for underserved communities, education, resources, access. It's everything I actually care about. He paused. But the merger would kill it. No time, no bandwidth, no resources. So you're choosing duty over passion? Aren't you? Nora thought about her mother, about Bennett Technologies, about every decision she'd made in service of someone else's dream. Yes, she said, I guess I am. They finished eating. Riley had left for the night. The office was quiet except for the hum of computers and the distant sound of traffic. Thank you, Nora said, for the food and for today. I couldn't have done it without you. You could have, Miles said, but I'm glad you didn't have to. He stood to leave, paused at the door. Nora? Yeah? Harmon was right about something else too. We need to trust each other. Actually trust, not just coordinate. I know. I'm willing to try if you are. Nora looked at him, really looked at him, not as the man who'd humiliated her 3 years ago, not as the person she was contractually obligated to live with, but as someone who understood what it meant to carry weight you never asked for. Okay, she said. Let's try. Miles smiled, small but genuine. After he left, Nora sat alone in her office. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel quite so alone. Nora noticed the blueprints by accident. It was Saturday morning. Miles had left early for a meeting. Nora was making coffee when she saw papers scattered across the kitchen island. Architectural drawings, budget spreadsheets, notes in Miles's sharp handwriting. She knew she shouldn't look. Privacy was part of their agreement. But curiosity won. She picked up the top page. Community Tech Hub, Phase 1 Design. Underneath, floor plans for a building, computer labs, classrooms, a library, notes in the margins, free coding courses, after-school programs, partnership with local schools. This was his project, the non-profit he'd mentioned. Nora flipped through more pages. He'd thought of everything: funding models, curriculum design, sustainability plans. This wasn't a side hobby, this was a fully realized vision, and he was going to give it up for the merger. She heard the elevator. Quickly, she set the papers back where she'd found them. Miles walked in, stopped when he saw her near the island. Sorry, Nora said. I was just making coffee. I didn't mean to. It's fine. He walked over, started gathering the papers. His movements were efficient, but not aggressive. I should have put these away. It's amazing, Miles. The Tech Hub. He paused. You looked at it. I'm sorry, I know I shouldn't have. No, it's... He set the papers down, rubbed his face. It's fine. I'm not hiding it. I just don't talk about it. Why not? Because talking about something you can't have feels like torture. Nora leaned against the counter. Who says you can't have it? The math. The merger takes 90% of my time. The remaining 10% goes to sleep. There's no space for this. What if you made space? How? I don't know, but giving up on something you clearly love, that seems like the wrong answer. Miles looked at her. Something in his expression shifted, softened. You really think it's good? I think it's brilliant. I think it's the kind of thing that actually changes lives. And I think you'd be exceptional at it. He was quiet for a moment. Then, thank you for saying that. I mean it. Miles picked up the blueprints, looked at them like they were precious, fragile. Maybe when the 6 months are over, he said quietly, maybe then I can revisit it. But Nora heard what he didn't say. By then, it'll be too late. She wanted to argue, to tell him he didn't have to choose, but she didn't have answers, only questions. So she made coffee instead, and tried not to think about the blueprints gathering dust in Miles's office. David Bennett's house in Westchester was exactly as Nora remembered from childhood. Too big, too formal, too full of memories that hurt. She and Miles arrived at 6 p.m. for dinner, an invitation that was really a command. Her father opened the door himself. Unusual. He usually had staff for that. Nora, Miles, come in. The dining room table was set for 3. Candles, wine, her mother's china. Nora felt her throat tighten. They sat, ate, made small talk about the weather, the city, everything except the merger disaster. Finally, over dessert, David set down his fork. "I want to apologize," he said. Nora blinked. "What?" "For putting you in this position. The engagement, the pressure, all of it." He looked at her with eyes that suddenly seemed older, tired. "I thought I was protecting the company, but I wasn't protecting you." "Dad, let me finish." He took a breath. "Your mother used to say I was good at building things, but terrible at maintaining them. Relationships, family, the things that matter." He smiled sadly. "She was right, and I've spent 15 years proving it." Nora felt tears prick her eyes. She blinked them back. "I built this company for her," David continued. "After she died, it became the only way I knew how to honor her memory. But somewhere along the way, I forgot that you're her legacy too. Not the company, you." Miles shifted slightly beside her, a small movement of support. "I don't need you to apologize," Nora said quietly. "I need you to trust me, to stop testing me, to believe I know what I'm doing." David nodded slowly. "You're right. I'm sorry for that too." "And," Nora added, feeling braver, "I need you to ask me if I'm happy. Not productive, not successful. Happy." "Are you happy?" Nora looked at Miles, then back at her father. "I'm learning to be," she said. They finished dessert, drank wine, talked about memories of Eleanor, her laugh, her terrible cooking, the way she could make anyone feel seen. At 10 p.m., Miles and Nora drove back to the city. "That was unexpected," Miles said. "Which part?" "All of it. Your father apologizing, you standing up to him, the whole thing." "I've wanted to say that for years." "Why didn't you?" "Because I was scared. Scared of disappointing him. Scared of proving I wasn't strong enough." She paused. "Tonight I realized I was tired of being scared." Miles was quiet. Then, "My mother is the exact opposite of your father. She never apologizes, never admits fault, just expects perfection and moves on when she doesn't get it." "Have you ever told her that bothers you?" "No." "Maybe you should." "Maybe." They drove in comfortable silence. The city rose up around them, familiar and vast. When they got home, Miles made tea. They sat on the balcony like they'd started doing most nights. "Your dad was right about one thing," Miles said. "You are Eleanor's legacy. I can see her in the way you fight for what matters." "You never met her." "I looked her up. After we signed the contract. I wanted to understand you. She gave a TED Talk in 2009 about ethical entrepreneurship. It was brilliant, uncompromising, exactly like you." Nora felt something warm spread through her chest. Not quite happiness, but close. "Thank you for coming tonight," she said. "You didn't have to." "I wanted to." "Why?" Miles looked at her. The city lights reflected in his eyes. "Because somewhere in the last few weeks, this stopped being just a contract." Nora's breath caught. Before she could respond, Miles stood. "Good night, Nora," he said quietly. He went inside. Nora sat alone on the balcony for a long time, turning his words over in her mind. This stopped being just a contract. She didn't know what it was instead, but she was starting to want to find out. The kiss happened by accident, or at least that's what Nora told herself. It was Wednesday afternoon. She and Miles were leaving the building after a board meeting. The lobby was full of people, employees, visitors, delivery workers, and photographers. 3 of them, cameras ready, blocking the exit. "Miss Bennett, Mr. Harding, just a few questions." Miles's hand went to Nora's back. Protective, automatic. "We have no comment," he said firmly. "Is the wedding still on? Are you canceling due to the merger issues? Is it true Bennett Technologies is being investigated? Are you staying together?" The questions came rapid fire, aggressive, designed to provoke. Nora felt Miles tense beside her. She could see the calculation in his eyes. They could push through, ignore them, Or, Miles turned her toward him. His hand cupped her face. "Trust me," he murmured. Then he kissed her. It was supposed to be for the cameras, a performance, proof they were fine, united, unbothered. But the moment his lips touched hers, something shifted. His hand in her hair, her fingers gripping his jacket, the world narrowing to just this, the warmth of his mouth, the way he tasted like coffee and something she couldn't name, the sudden, startling realization that this felt nothing like pretending. The cameras flashed. Miles pulled back slowly. His eyes searched hers. "That was for them," he said quietly, but his voice wavered slightly. "Right," Nora managed. "For them." His hand was still on her face. She couldn't look away. The photographers were shouting more questions. Miles dropped his hand, guided her toward the car. They climbed in. The door closed. Privacy screen up. Silence. Nora touched her lips. They still felt warm. "I'm sorry," Miles said. "I should have warned you." "It's fine. It was strategic." "Strategic, right." The driver pulled into traffic. Nora stared out the window, watching the city blur. That kiss had been many things. Strategic was not one of them. For 3 days, they didn't talk about the kiss. Miles worked late, came home after Nora was asleep, left early, avoided the kitchen when she was there. They were back to being ghosts. On Saturday, Nora had enough. She waited in the living room until she heard his office door open. 11 p.m. "We need to talk," she said when he emerged. Miles stopped. "About what?" "About the kiss. About the fact that you've been avoiding me since Wednesday. About whatever this is." "There's nothing to talk about." "Miles." He sighed, sat on the couch across from her, kept distance between them. "It was for the cameras," he said. "I shouldn't have done it without asking. It crossed a line. I apologize." "That's bullshit." He looked at her sharply. "Excuse me?" "You're lying. To me. To yourself. That kiss wasn't for the cameras." "Nora." "I felt it, Miles. The way you kissed me. That wasn't strategic. That was real." Silence fell between them like a stone. Miles ran his hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration she'd come to recognize. "Okay," he said quietly. "Fine, it was real. Happy?" "No, because now I don't know what we're doing." "Neither do I." Nora felt her heart pounding. This was supposed to be simple. 6 months, fake engagement, then we walk away. "I know. But now it's not simple." "I know. So what do we do?" Miles met her eyes. "I don't know, but I think—" He paused. "I think we stop pretending it's just a contract. I think we admit that somewhere along the way, this became something else." "Something like what?" "Like I care about you. Like I look forward to seeing you every morning. Like I kissed you because I wanted to, not because I had to." His voice was raw, honest. "Like this scares the hell out of me." Nora couldn't breathe. "Me too," she whispered. They sat in the dim living room, the confession hanging between them. "We have 3 more months," Miles said. 3 months where we're supposed to keep pretending, but I don't think I can anymore." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying, maybe we stop pretending. Maybe we try this for real." He leaned forward. "No contract, no conditions. Just us." Nora's mind raced. This was dangerous, complicated, everything she'd sworn to avoid. But when she looked at Miles, really looked at him, she saw someone who understood her, who challenged her, who made her feel less alone. "Okay," she said. "Okay? Let's try, for real." Miles smiled, not his corporate smile, his real one, the one that made him look younger, lighter. "Come here," he said softly. Nora moved to the couch beside him. He pulled her close. She rested her head on his shoulder. They sat like that for a long time, not talking, just being. Outside, the city hummed with its endless noise. Inside, for the first time, it felt like home. Monday morning, everything felt different. Nora woke to find Miles making breakfast. Actual breakfast. Eggs, toast, coffee. He was humming. "You're in a good mood," she observed. "I slept well," he handed her coffee, "and I made a decision." "About?" "The tech hub. I'm going to fight for it. Find a way to make it work alongside the merger." He met her eyes. "You were right. Giving up on something I love is the wrong answer." Nora smiled. "Good. And," he added, "I'm going to talk to my mother. Tell her I need the merger terms adjusted." "That's huge." "I know, but I can't keep living for her expectations." He paused. "You inspired that. Your conversation with your father, the way you stood up for yourself." "I'm glad." They ate breakfast together, discussed schedules, coordinated meetings. But now there was warmth beneath the logistics, something that felt like partnership. At noon, Riley called. "I need you to see something," she said. "Can you come to the office?" 20 minutes later, Nora and Miles were in Riley's office. She pulled up a news article on her screen. "Marcus Harmon gave an interview this morning," Riley said. She hit play. Harmon's face filled the screen. "And while the sabotage attempt was concerning, I was impressed by how Bennett and Harding handled it. They showed up. They delivered evidence. They took accountability. That's the kind of leadership I want to partner with." The interviewer leaned forward. "So the acquisition is back on?" "The acquisition," Harmon said, "was never really off." The video ended. Nora looked at Miles. He was grinning. "We did it," she said. "We did it." Riley leaned back in her chair. "I hate to be the one to say I told you so, but—" "Don't," Nora warned. "You two are genuinely good together, like scary good." Nora felt heat rise in her cheeks. "Riley, I'm just saying, the fake thing? It's not fake anymore, I can tell." Miles cleared his throat. "We should get back to work." "Right," Riley said, grinning. "Work." They left her office. In the elevator, Miles caught Nora's hand. "She's not wrong," he said. "About? It's not fake anymore." Nora squeezed his hand. "No, it's not." The elevator doors opened. They stepped out into the lobby. Someone was waiting by the reception desk. A woman in a tailored suit. Sharp eyes. Commanding presence. Margaret Harding, Miles's mother. She looked at Miles, then at Nora, then at their joined hands. "We need to talk," Margaret said. "Now." Margaret's car was a black Mercedes with tinted windows and leather seats that smelled like money and power. They drove in silence to a restaurant in Midtown. Private dining room, no witnesses. Margaret ordered wine, waited until it arrived, then fixed her gaze on Miles. "I received your proposal this morning," she said. "The one where you want to restructure the merger to accommodate your nonprofit." "It's called the Community Tech Hub," Miles said. "And yes, I want it protected." Protected, as if it's more important than the $4 billion merger. To me, it is. Margaret's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Surprise, maybe, or disappointment. "You're willing to risk everything for this?" she asked. "I'm willing to fight for what matters to me, yes." Margaret turned to Nora. "And you? Are you supporting this?" Nora felt the weight of that question. This was a test, a challenge. "Yes," she said firmly. "The tech hub is brilliant. And if we can't make room for what we actually care about, what's the point of any of this?" Margaret sipped her wine, took her time. "Miles," she said finally, "when your father died, you were 16. Do you remember what I told you? That I had to be strong, had to step up. And you did. You became exactly what I needed. But somewhere along the way," she paused, "I forgot to ask what you needed." Miles stared at her. "Mom, I've been controlling, demanding. I justified it by saying it was for the company, for the legacy. But really," her voice softened, I was terrified of losing you too. If I could control your path, I could keep you safe. Or so I thought. Nora saw tears gathering in Margaret's eyes. I'm sorry, Margaret said, for making you feel like you couldn't have your own dreams, for putting the company above your happiness. She looked at Nora. Both of you. This engagement was my idea. I thought it would secure the merger. I didn't think about what it would cost you. It's okay, Miles started. It's not, but I'm going to fix it. Margaret pulled out a document. I've revised the merger terms. Your tech hub gets $5 million in seed funding, 10% of your time allocated to it for the first 2 years, and full autonomy over operations. Miles took the document, read it. His hands shook slightly. You're serious, he said. I'm serious, Margaret looked at her son. I want you to be happy, Miles, even if I'm terrible at showing it. Miles stood, walked around the table, hugged his mother. Nora looked away, giving them privacy. When they sat back down, Margaret's eyes were bright. Now, she said, composing herself, about this engagement, is it real, or am I going to be embarrassed when you call it off in 3 months? Miles looked at Nora. It's real, he said. Margaret smiled, a genuine smile. Good, because you two are annoyingly perfect together. They came home that night to an empty penthouse. Quiet, dark, full of possibility. Miles turned on one lamp. The warm light made everything softer. Today was a lot, Nora said. Understatement. She kicked off her shoes, collapsed onto the couch. Miles sat beside her, closer than he would have a week ago. I can't believe your mom approved the tech hub, Nora said. Neither can I, but I think, he paused, I think she was waiting for me to fight for it, to prove I actually wanted it. And now? Now I get to build something that matters, he looked at her, because of you. I didn't do anything. You made me believe it was possible. That's everything. Nora turned to face him. His eyes were dark in the lamplight, serious. Miles? Yeah? When this started, I thought 6 months would destroy me. Being with you, pretending to be something we weren't. She took a breath. But somewhere along the way, the pretending stopped. And I realized I didn't want it to end. Neither do I. So what happens in 3 months, when the contract expires? Miles reached for her hand, threaded his fingers through hers. We tear up the contract, he said, and we start over. For real this time. No conditions, no expiration date, just us. You make it sound simple. It is simple. I love you. That's the whole equation. Nora's breath caught. You love me? Yes, I think I have for a while. I just didn't let myself admit it. She felt tears prick her eyes. Happy tears, terrifying tears. I love you too, she whispered. Miles pulled her close, kissed her forehead, her temple, her lips. This kiss was nothing like the one in the lobby. This was slow, deliberate, a promise. When they pulled apart, Nora rested her forehead against his. So, she said, we're doing this. We're doing this. For real. For real. Outside, the city lights spread in every direction. A million lives, a million stories. But here, in this moment, there was only them. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Nora felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Nora woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and the smell of coffee. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then memory returned. The penthouse, Miles's confession, the kiss that meant everything. She smiled into her pillow. When she emerged from her bedroom, Miles was on the balcony with his laptop and a mug. He looked up when he heard her. Morning, he said. Morning. She poured herself coffee, joined him outside. The city stretched below them, already awake and moving. I didn't want to wake you, Miles said, but I've been working on the tech hub proposal. I think I have a timeline that works. Show me. He turned his laptop toward her. She saw spreadsheets, architectural plans, partnership proposals. He'd been working on this for hours. "This is incredible," she said. "It's a start." He closed the laptop. "But I wanted to ask you something." "Okay." "The tech hub needs a board. People who understand both technology and social impact. I want you on it." Nora blinked. "Me? You built the AI ethics division. You understand how to make technology serve people, not just profit. You're perfect for this." "Miles, I don't know if—" "I'm not asking as your fiancé. I'm asking as someone who respects your work, who believes you'd make this better." He paused. "Will you consider it?" Nora looked at him, at the hope in his eyes, at the project he was finally letting himself dream about. "Yes," she said. "I'll do it." Miles's smile was radiant. He leaned over, kissed her softly. When he pulled back, his hand lingered on her face. "Thank you," he said. "Thank you for asking." They sat in the morning light, drinking coffee, planning a future that felt suddenly, startlingly real. Nora's phone buzzed. A text from Riley. "Merger finalization meeting tomorrow, 2 p.m. This is it, tomorrow. The merger would be official. 6 months of chaos would culminate in signatures and press releases. And then what? Nora looked at Miles. He was reading something on his phone, his brow furrowed in concentration. She realized she didn't want the contract to end. She wanted this. Every morning, every conversation, every moment where he looked at her like she mattered. "Miles? Yeah? When the contract expires, what happens to us?" He set down his phone. "What do you want to happen?" "I want this to be real, not because of paperwork, but because we choose it." "Then that's what we do." He took her hand. "We choose each other, every day, for as long as it works." "What if it stops working?" "Then we'll deal with it, together." He squeezed her hand. "But I don't think it will." Nora felt something settle in her chest. Not quite peace, but close. "Okay," she said. "Okay." The morning stretched around them, full of possibility. Riley's text came at 9 p.m. "Need you at my apartment. Now. Emergency." Nora grabbed her keys, called Riley on the way down. "What's wrong?" "Just get here, please." 20 minutes later, Nora was at Riley's door. Riley answered in pajamas, eyes red. "What happened?" Nora asked. Riley pulled her inside, showed her a laptop screen, a gossip website. The headline, "Harding's Exit Strategy, Contract Marriage Exposed." Beneath it, an article claiming the engagement was fake, that Miles had an exit clause written into the original contract, that he was planning to end it the moment the merger finalized. Nora's blood went cold. "This is bullshit," she said. "Is it?" "Of course it is. Miles loves me. He told me—" "Did you read the original contract? Every clause?" Nora hesitated. "Most of it. There's a clause 28, late edition. It allows either party to dissolve the engagement with 48 hours notice once the merger is complete. That's standard. We both agreed to that. But there's an amendment, dated 2 weeks ago. Miles requested it be updated to remove all financial penalties if he initiated the dissolution." Nora felt the room tilt. "He wouldn't," she said, but her voice wavered. "Nora, I'm not saying he's definitely planning to leave. I'm saying the paperwork exists, and someone leaked it." Riley's eyes were fierce, protective. "You need to ask him, before tomorrow, before the merger." "Yes." Nora sat on Riley's couch. Her mind raced. Miles had been distant last week, avoiding her after the kiss. What if it wasn't guilt? What if it was planning? No, she knew him. He wouldn't. But did she know him? Really? They'd been together for 3 months. 3 months of performance, and pressure, and pretending. How much of it had been real? "I need to go," Nora said. "Where?" "Home. I need to talk to him." Riley grabbed her arm. "Nora, protect yourself. Don't assume he's telling the truth just because you want him to." Nora pulled away. I have to give him a chance to explain. And if he can't? Nora didn't answer. She left Riley's apartment and walked into the night. The penthouse was dark when Nora arrived. Miles's office light was on. She heard his voice. He was on a call. She stood in the hallway listening. Need the exit clause finalized before tomorrow? Yes. I know what I'm doing. This is the only way. Pause. I can't explain it to her yet. Not until after the merger. It's too complicated. Nora's heart shattered. She walked away before she could hear more. Went to her room, closed the door, sat on her bed in the dark. He was leaving, planning it. The exit clause was real. Everything he'd said, I love you, this is real, we choose each other, had been lies. Or worse, performances. She heard his office door open, footsteps in the hallway, a knock on her door. Nora, you home? She didn't answer. I saw your keys by the door, are you okay? Go away, she thought, just go away. The footsteps retreated. Nora lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow, the merger would finalize. Tomorrow, she'd have to stand beside Miles and smile for cameras and pretend her world wasn't ending. And the day after, he'd probably activate that clause and walk away. She closed her eyes, tried to remember what it felt like before she'd met him, before she'd made the mistake of believing someone could actually want her for more than what she could provide. The memory wouldn't come. All she could see was Miles's smile, his laugh, the way he'd looked at her that morning on the balcony. Had any of it been real? She didn't sleep that night. Nora left the penthouse at 5 a.m., couldn't be there when Miles woke up, couldn't pretend everything was fine. She went to Riley's apartment, let herself in with a spare key. Riley found her on the couch at 6:30. Did you talk to him? Riley asked. I heard him, on the phone. He's planning to use the exit clause. He said he can't explain it to me until after the merger. Riley sat beside her. I'm so sorry. I was an idiot. I believed him. You're not an idiot. You're human. And Riley paused. He's a bastard if he's playing you. The merger is at 2 p.m. I have to be there. I have to stand next to him and smile and act like we're in love. Can you do that? Nora thought about her mother, about the company, about 3,000 employees who needed this merger to succeed. I don't have a choice, she said. Riley made coffee. They sat in silence as the city woke up around them. At noon, Nora's phone rang. Miles. She didn't answer. He called again. And again. Finally, a text. Where are you? The merger meeting is in 2 hours. We need to talk. Nora typed back. I'll be there. That's all you need to know. She turned off her phone. At 1:30, Riley drove her to the Bennett Technologies building. Nora wore her Navy suit, the armor she'd worn to 1,000 battles. You sure about this? Riley asked. No, but I'm doing it anyway. She walked into the building alone. The conference room was full. Both boards, legal teams, Margaret Harding on video call, David at the head of the table, and Miles standing by the windows, looking like he hadn't slept. He saw Nora. Relief flooded his face. Nora, where have you been? I've been calling. I'm here, she said coldly. Let's get this done. His expression shifted. Confusion, then concern. What's wrong? Nothing. Let's finalize the merger. Nora. Mr. Harding, David interrupted. Shall we begin? Miles looked at Nora for a long moment. She kept her face blank, professional. He sat down. The meeting proceeded. Lawyers presented documents. Financials were reviewed. Terms were confirmed. Every few minutes, Miles glanced at Nora. She didn't look back. At 3:15, David stood. If there are no objections, we'll proceed to final signatures. Silence. Documents were passed around. Nora signed her name. Miles signed his. Margaret approved electronically. David added his signature last. Congratulations, the lead lawyer said. The merger is complete. Applause rippled through the room. Nora stood, started to leave. Miles caught her arm. Nora, please, we need to talk. There's nothing to talk about. Yes, there is. Whatever you heard, I heard enough. She pulled her arm free. Congratulations on the merger and on your exit strategy. She walked out. Behind her, she heard Miles say something to the room, then footsteps following her. She didn't look back. Miles caught up with her in the parking garage. Nora, stop, please. She spun around. What do you want, Miles? I want to explain. Explain what? That you have an exit clause? That you're planning to use it? That everything you said was a lie? It wasn't a lie. I heard you on the phone last night talking about finalizing the exit clause before the merger, saying you couldn't explain it to me yet. Her voice cracked. I trusted you. I let myself believe this was real. Miles ran his hand through his hair. It is real. God, Nora, it's the most real thing I've ever had. But you don't understand. Then make me understand. He took a breath. The exit clause wasn't for me. It was for you. Nora blinked. What? 2 weeks ago, I went to the lawyers. I had them remove all financial penalties if you wanted to dissolve the engagement. I didn't want you trapped. I didn't want you to stay because of the contract. I wanted... He paused. I wanted you to stay because you chose to, because you wanted to, not because you were obligated. Nora felt the ground shift beneath her. The phone call you heard, Miles continued, was me finalizing those changes, making sure that after today, you'd be free. Free to choose me or walk away, whatever you wanted. You were protecting me? I was trying to. I was going to tell you today, after the merger. I wanted you to know that from this moment forward, there's no contract between us. Just, he stepped closer, just us, if you want that. Nora felt tears sting her eyes. You idiot. I know. I thought you were leaving me. Never, God, Nora, never. He cupped her face. I love you, the real you, not the version in the contract, not the CEO or the legacy or any of it, just you. I love you too, she whispered. I'm sorry I didn't trust. Don't. You had every reason not to. I should have told you sooner. She laughed through tears. We're terrible at this. At what? Communication. Trust. All of it. Miles smiled. Then we'll get better. Together. He kissed her. Slow and deep and full of everything they'd been too scared to say. When they pulled apart, Nora rested her forehead against his. So, she said, no more contract? No more contract. Just us? Just us. For how long? Miles pulled back slightly, looked at her with eyes that held no shadows, no doubts. Forever, he said, if you'll have me. Nora smiled. That's a long time. I know. Okay, forever. They stood in the parking garage, holding each other, while the world moved on around them. And for the first time, Nora understood what it meant to be free. That evening, Riley threw a small celebration at her apartment. Just the three of them. Wine, takeout, terrible reality TV. So let me get this straight, Riley said. You thought he was leaving. He thought you deserved freedom. You both panicked. And now you're staying together anyway. That's the summary, Nora said. You two are exhausting. Miles laughed. We know. Riley pointed at him. You're lucky I don't kill you for making her cry. Noted. And you, Riley turned to Nora, next time maybe ask questions before assuming the worst? I'll work on it. They ate pizza and drank too much wine and laughed until Nora's sides hurt. At 11, Riley kicked them out. Go home. Be disgustingly happy. I'll see you Monday. In the elevator, Miles pulled Nora close. Thank you, he said. For what? For giving me a second chance. For not walking away when you could have. Thank you for making me want to stay. The elevator opened into the penthouse, their home. Not because of a contract, but because they'd chosen it. Miles poured 2 glasses of whiskey. They sat on the balcony under the stars. "I talked to my mother today," Miles said. "After the merger, told her we're staying together, actually together." "What did she say?" "She said she knew, that she'd known for weeks. Apparently we're transparent as glass when we look at each other." Nora laughed. "Were that obvious?" "According to her, yes." They sat in comfortable silence. "Miles." "Yeah?" "The tech hub. When do you start building it?" "Next month. I've already got architects lined up, curriculum designers, partnership meetings scheduled with 3 school districts." "I'm excited to be part of it." He took her hand. "I couldn't do it without you." "Yes, you could, but I'm glad you don't have to." The city glowed beneath them. Infinite lights, infinite possibilities. Nora leaned against Miles's shoulder, felt his arm come around her. This was home. Not the penthouse, not the view, not the expensive furniture. This. Him. Them. "I love you," she said. "I love you too." They stayed on the balcony until the city quieted and the stars faded into dawn. 3 months later, the tech hub held its grand opening. The building was in Brooklyn, a converted warehouse in a neighborhood that had been neglected for decades. Now it gleamed with fresh paint and new windows and hope. Miles stood at the podium, addressing a crowd of donors, students, and press. "This hub exists because someone told me I couldn't have both," he said, "that I had to choose between duty and passion, between legacy and purpose. But I learned that false choices only exist when we accept them." He looked at Nora in the front row. "Someone taught me that. Someone who refuses to accept limitations, who builds what others say is impossible." Applause filled the room. After the ceremony, students toured the facilities. Computer labs full of new equipment, classrooms designed for collaboration, a library stocked with resources most of these kids had never had access to. Nora watched Miles talk to a teenage girl about coding. His face was animated, alive in a way she'd never seen in board meetings. "He's good at this," Riley said beside her. "He is." "You're good for him. You know that, right?" Nora smiled. "He's good for me, too." David approached. "Impressive work, both of you." "Thanks, Dad. Your mother would be proud." He paused. "I'm proud." Nora felt tears prick her eyes. "Thank you." He squeezed her shoulder and moved on. At 8 p.m., after everyone had left, Nora and Miles stood alone in the empty hub. "We did it," Miles said. "You did it. This was your dream." "Our dream now." He pulled her close. "Thank you for believing in it. In me. Always." They walked through the quiet building, turning off lights, locking doors. Outside, Brooklyn hummed with evening life. Music from a bar down the street. Laughter from a group of teenagers. The subway rumbling beneath their feet. Miles's car was parked at the curb, but he didn't move toward it. "Nora?" "Yeah?" He turned to face her, reached into his pocket, pulled out a small box. Nora's breath caught. "I know we're already engaged," Miles said, "and I know the contract is void, but I wanted—" He opened the box. Inside was a different ring. Simple, elegant, nothing like the one from the lawyers. "I wanted to ask you properly. No contracts, no conditions. Just me asking if you'll spend your life with me." Nora looked at the ring, then at Miles. At the man who'd gone from enemy to stranger to partner to love. "Yes," she said. 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring on her finger, kissed her beneath the Brooklyn streetlights. When they pulled apart, Nora looked at her hand. 2 rings now, the old one and the new, past and future. "Should I take off the first ring?" she asked. "Keep it. It's a reminder." "Of what?" "Of how far we've come, of where we started, of everything we survived to get here." Nora smiled. "I like that." They got in the car, drove back to Manhattan. Back to the penthouse that had stopped being neutral territory and become home. The wedding was small, not the circus everyone expected, not the PR event Riley had proposed. Just 40 people in a garden in Westchester. Family, close friends, people who mattered. Nora wore a simple dress, ivory, tea-length, her mother's pearls at her throat. Miles wore a gray suit, no tie, the top button undone in that way she loved. Riley was her maid of honor. Margaret sat in the front row beside David. Both parents had tears in their eyes. The officiant was brief. No long speeches, no unnecessary flourishes, just vows. Miles went first. Nora, 3 years ago I made a mistake. I was cruel when I should have been curious, dismissive when I should have been respectful. It took me too long to realize what I'd lost by pushing you away. He took her hands. But life gave me a second chance, a contract, 6 months to pretend, and in that pretending, I found the most real thing I've ever known. I found you. His voice wavered. I promise to choose you every day, to fight for what we have, to never take you for granted, to build a life where we both get to dream. Nora's turn. Miles, when this started, I thought I knew exactly who you were. Arrogant, controlling, someone I could never understand. But I was wrong. She squeezed his hands. You're careful because you care. You're driven because you want to matter. You're everything I never knew I needed. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I promise to trust you, to communicate even when it's hard, to build something with you that's ours, not our parents', not the world's, ours. The officiant smiled. Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you married. You may. Miles kissed her before the sentence finished. Laughter rippled through the garden. When they pulled apart, Nora was grinning. Impatient, she murmured. Always. The reception was on the lawn. String lights, a jazz quartet, food from their favorite restaurants. Nora and Miles danced to a song her mother had loved. At Last by Etta James. How does it feel? Miles asked. Being married. Same as yesterday, but different. Good different? The best different. He spun her gently, pulled her back close. I have a confession, he said. Oh? That first day, in the conference room when we signed the contract, I thought you were stunning, even when I was angry, even when I wanted to argue. He smiled. I think I started falling then. I just didn't know it yet. I thought you were insufferable. And now? Still insufferable, but mine. They danced until the stars came out, until the last guest left, until it was just them and the fairy lights and the promise of forever. Riley found them at midnight. Car's here, she said, unless you want to sleep in the garden. Tempting, Nora said. They said goodbye to David and Margaret, hugged Riley, got in the car. The driver took them to the airport, private jet waiting, honeymoon in Italy, 2 weeks of no work, no obligations, just them. On the plane, Nora curled against Miles's shoulder. Thank you, she said. For what? For being patient, for not giving up on me when I was scared. Thank you for being brave enough to try. The plane lifted into the night sky. Below, the city disappeared into darkness and distance. Above, stars scattered across infinite black. Nora closed her eyes and smiled. This was the beginning. 6 months after the wedding, Nora and Miles sat on their balcony on a Sunday morning. Coffee, newspapers, the comfortable silence of people who didn't need to fill every moment with words. Miles's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, smiled. The tech hub just got approved for expansion, he said. We can open a second location in Queens. That's amazing. They want you on the board for that one too. Obviously, someone has to keep you in check. He laughed, reached for her hand. The city spread beneath them, endless and alive, full of people chasing their own dreams, fighting their own battles, finding their own versions of home. Nora thought about the girl she'd been a year ago. Controlled, careful, convinced that love was something other people got, People who were softer, easier, less damaged. She'd been wrong. Love wasn't for perfect people. It was for people willing to try, to fail, to show up even when it was terrifying. "What are you thinking?" Miles asked. "That I'm happy. Good. Really happy. The kind I didn't know I could be." He squeezed her hand. "Me too." They sat in the morning light, planning the week ahead. Board meetings, tech hub site visits, dinner with Riley on Wednesday, date night Friday. Ordinary things, beautiful things. Nora's phone buzzed. A message from her father. "Quarterly reports look excellent. Well done. Also, are you two coming to dinner next week? I'm making your mother's lasagna." She typed back, "We'll be there." She set down her phone, looked at Miles, at the man who'd gone from adversary to partner to love of her life. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For showing me what's possible. When you stop pretending and start living." Miles pulled her close, kissed her temple. "Same to you." The sun climbed higher. The city woke fully. Somewhere below, 1,000 stories were beginning, ending, transforming. But here on this balcony, Nora and Miles had already found theirs. A story that started with a contract and ended with a choice. The choice to love. The choice to stay. The choice to build something real from the ruins of what they thought they knew. And in the end, that was the only story that mattered.